have crucial news for you. This moment, right now, is not ordinary. It is a doorway. The skies may say Aries, but the true current pulsing through the heavens is still Pisces, intuitive, emotional, spiritual. And it's reaching for you. If you're hearing this, it's not by chance. You were drawn here because April 9th, 2025, is a threshold in the realm of spirit. Mercury goes direct in Pisces, returning power to your inner voice. Venus aligns with Saturn, demanding honesty in matters of the heart. And above them, the North Node in Pisces pulls you gently towards something you've known all along, but may have been afraid to trust. These are not just planetary shifts. They are spiritual instructions. And the ones who are listening, truly listening, will recognize the signal. If something within you is already responding, type 777 in the comments. Let it mark this moment as your alignment with divine timing. Now stay close. Because what comes next was written for your awakening. Everything in the outside world might still be moving fast. Aries season ignites the surface with fire, action, and the need to move forward, but something softer, something far more sacred, is happening underneath. It isn't loud. It doesn't demand your attention with force. In fact, it only reveals itself if you're willing to be quiet enough to hear. And now, as Mercury begins moving forward in Pisces, the invitation arrives gently, but unmistakably: be still. Listen. Not with your mind, but with your soul. You may have noticed it already, an inner fog that's been lifting slowly. Thoughts that once looped in confusion have started softening, not because you found answers in the external, but because you've begun tuning into something older, something wiser, something inside you. The energy of Pisces doesn't communicate in words. It speaks in energy, in emotion, in those subtle shifts in your chest when you walk into a room, or the feeling that something is off even when everything looks perfect on paper. Now that Mercury is direct again in this sign, it's as if the spiritual radio frequency clears. The interference, the emotional static, the jumbled thoughts, they quiet down just long enough for you to receive. To perceive. To feel without analyzing. And in this stillness, insights begin to rise. Not new ones, necessarily. Often, it's the same messages you've been ignoring, brushing aside, or doubting. But this time, they return with weight. They return with clarity. With confirmation. You might find yourself suddenly remembering a dream you had weeks ago, one that didn't make sense then, but now feels eerily relevant. Or you may rehear a sentence someone once said to you, and this time it cuts through your entire being like truth finally landing. You may walk away from a conversation and realize you absorbed more from the energy than the words. These are not coincidences. This is Piscean perception, now flowing freely through your system. The unseen is becoming visible, not with your eyes, but through your knowing. And just as you begin settling into this deeper space of reception, another alignment arrives that shifts the atmosphere again. This time, it carries weight. It feels heavier. Grounded. Confrontational in the most loving way. Venus and Saturn meet in the sky, and together they ask a question you cannot afford to ignore: what do you really value? What does love mean to you when all illusions are stripped away? Venus brings you into your heart. She reminds you what feels good, what feels alive, what stirs the beauty within you. But Saturn stands at the door and says, if you want this to last, you must take it seriously. This isn't romantic fantasy. It's soul-level reality. It's a test of integrity. Of honesty. Of maturity. It's one thing to long for love, for alignment, for emotional truth, but are you willing to be responsible with it? Are you willing to face what isn't working? Are you prepared to do the quiet work of becoming the version of yourself that can hold what your heart has been asking for? You may find yourself looking at relationships with new eyes. Not just romantic ones, friendships, family, creative partnerships. Even the relationship you have with your own self-worth. Suddenly, things that used to be enough feel empty. Conversations that once felt fulfilling feel forced. Certain dynamics feel strained, not because they've changed, but because you have. You're growing. And Venus with Saturn refuses to let you lie to yourself about it. This energy doesn't come to destroy what's beautiful. It comes to refine it. To strengthen it. To strip away what's performative and leave only what's real. It brings you face to face with the question, am I building my life on what I truly value, or am I still negotiating my truth for the sake of comfort? This is a moment of emotional reckoning. And yet, it's not cold or cruel. There is compassion here. The kind that holds you accountable not out of punishment, but out of love. Because the soul cannot thrive in half-truths. The heart cannot be fully alive in places where it's only partially seen. And so, as Mercury opens the intuitive gates within you, and Venus and Saturn confront the structures around you, a sacred alignment forms, inner clarity meets outer responsibility. What you're receiving spiritually must now take form emotionally. Energetically. Practically. You can no longer pretend not to know. You do know. You felt it for a long time. And now, the universe is asking, what will you do with this knowing? Will you ignore it again, or will you honor it this time? This is the moment where messages from the unseen realm become decisions in the physical. Where what you've intuited must be lived. Spoken. Embodied. Not perfectly, but honestly. The time for postponing truth is over. The time to align what you feel with how you live, is now. As the waves of spiritual clarity ripple through your inner world, you may begin to feel an unusual craving, one that has nothing to do with people, plans, or the outer world. Instead, it is a quiet yearning for distance, stillness, and solitude. Not because you are withdrawing, but because your soul is calling you back into sacred alignment. There comes a time when the noise of the world becomes too loud for the whispers of heaven to be heard. And this, right now, is one of those times. You may feel the urge to step away from things that once energized you. Certain conversations feel empty. Familiar places now seem overstimulating. The people you used to connect with effortlessly may suddenly feel far away, not because anything is wrong, but because you are shifting. Your frequency is adjusting. And when that happens, silence becomes more nourishing than sound. The sacred solitude you're entering is not a void, it is a womb. A space where your spirit can recalibrate, where your heart can breathe without performance, and where your intuition can finally speak without being drowned out by the expectations of others. In this stillness, you begin to remember what was lost. The you that existed before the noise, before the rush, before the conditioning. Long-forgotten talents begin to flicker again. You may feel called to draw, to write, to sing, to pray, not for achievement, but because something inside you wants to come alive. Childhood memories resurface, not to haunt you, but to remind you of the unfiltered self you used to be. You begin to dream differently, feel differently, sense things before they happen. This isn't regression. It's resurrection. Your gifts were never lost. They were simply waiting for space. In the sacred quiet, even your body speaks. You might feel the urge to rest deeply, to move slowly, to protect your energy like it's holy, because it is. You realize that rest is not laziness, but preparation. And the more you lean into that space of intentional stillness, the more you begin to see that your life is not just shifting, it is being restructured from the inside out. You're not escaping the world. You're re-entering it on different terms. And just when you begin to find peace in the pause, a sudden gust of cosmic force moves through your atmosphere. It doesn't ask for permission, and it doesn't wait for readiness. Uranus, now moving through Taurus, forms a sextile to these Piscean energies, and with it comes divine disruption. It arrives like lightning, sudden, illuminating, impossible to ignore. At first, it may feel like chaos. Plans unravel. Certainties dissolve. Conversations take unexpected turns. But this is not the chaos of confusion, it is the chaos of clarity. Uranus shakes the ground beneath you not to scare you, but to free you. It targets the structures you've built around fear, fear of being judged, of being misunderstood, of being too much or not enough. These are the invisible cages you've learned to live inside. And Uranus doesn't just rattle the lock. It rips the door off its hinges. What you thought you needed begins to feel restrictive. What you believed was stability begins to feel suffocating. And deep down, you already know, it's not falling apart. It's falling away. You may feel disoriented at first. You may question everything you thought was certain. But listen closely, this is not the breakdown, it is the breakthrough. Uranus doesn't destroy without reason. It destroys to reveal what can no longer be denied. You may feel compelled to change direction, to walk away from something you once begged to keep, or to initiate something that terrifies you. That's not recklessness. That's alignment. The version of yourself that tolerated stagnation is no longer in charge. Your higher self is rising. And with it comes the demand for truth, no matter how disruptive it feels. These two currents, sacred stillness and divine disruption, are not pulling you in opposite directions. They are dancing together in perfect balance. One slows you down, so you can hear what matters. The other speeds up what needs to change, so you can stop living on delay. One awakens memory, the other activates motion. One brings you into contact with your deepest inner world, the other insists that this inner truth must now be lived on the outer stage. There is no more space for halfway. You can no longer dwell in spiritual knowing without spiritual obedience. What you hear in solitude must translate into how you show up in life. And while the comfort of the familiar may tug at you, whispering, "Stay where it's safe," the voice of Uranus thunders with holy urgency, "You cannot be the old you anymore." And you know it's true. You feel it in your chest. You see it in the way your body rejects old rhythms. You recognize it in your dreams, in the fatigue that only lifts when you're honest, in the freedom you taste every time you move closer to your authentic path. You were never meant to stay in the version of yourself that conformed just to be accepted. You were always meant to evolve, to rise, to be reborn. And so you stand here, between silence and movement, between memory and change, watching as the old world dissolves and a new one quietly takes form within you. This is not the end. It is the real beginning. And no, it doesn't come with full clarity, a 5-step plan, or the applause of others. It comes with a stirring in your spirit that says, "This is right. This is true. This is mine." Let the noise fall away. Let the illusions collapse. Let the false identities crack open. Because what remains, after the shaking, is real. And what is real, is ready to be lived. And just as you begin adjusting to the quiet rearrangement within, just as your soul starts to stretch into the space cleared by sacred solitude and divine disruption, something extraordinary begins to awaken. It starts subtly, almost imperceptibly. A strange stillness before you fall asleep. A dream that feels more vivid than reality. A sudden chill that passes through your body during a conversation that seems ordinary on the surface. You begin to realize, something is online now. And that something is you. Your inner senses, those forgotten faculties that were once dulled by noise, logic, and worldly distractions, are reactivating. The unseen becomes a language. Your third eye, long quiet, begins to flicker with perception. You notice patterns. Synchronicities. A number repeating. A word echoed in 3 different places. A dream that shows you what your conscious mind cannot. These are not accidents. They are messages. Spiritual downloads. Whispers from the divine realm, now making their way through your energetic system with increasing clarity. You begin to recognize what others miss. You walk into a room and feel the atmosphere shift before a word is spoken. You hear a friend talk about their day, but your body hears the sadness they're hiding. You look at someone and know you've met them before, not in this life, but in the soul's longer journey. Your heart leaps, your body shivers, your chest tightens or expands in response to energy you cannot explain. These are not emotional reactions. These are intuitive signals. This is your inner radar, reawakened and recalibrated. And this time, you are being asked not to ignore it. Because these senses, this knowing, has always lived within you. You were born with it. You used to see things others didn't. Feel things others couldn't explain. As a child, perhaps you had vivid dreams, strong gut feelings, or emotional sensitivities that no one around you knew how to validate. Maybe you were told you were too sensitive, too strange, too quiet, too much. And over time, you buried those parts of yourself, not because they were untrue, but because the world didn't make space for them. You learned to survive by silencing what made you luminous. But survival is not the same as living. And now, as the spiritual energy intensifies, those buried gifts are stirring again. The child within you, the one who once danced with invisible forces, the one who trusted the unseen, the one who spoke with clarity that came from the soul and not the mind, that child is rising. The part of you that could sense truth without evidence, feel love beyond words, and hear God in the silence, it was never lost. It was just waiting for the world inside you to be quiet enough to return home. This is the moment of reclaiming. And it's not about performance, it's about remembrance. You are not learning these abilities for the first time. You are remembering them. Reuniting with the sacred gifts that have always been part of your divine design. The question now is no longer, do I have this? But, am I ready to use this again? Ask yourself with honesty, with softness, what part of my sacred self have I hidden to be accepted? What part of my intuitive nature did I abandon in order to feel normal? What light inside me have I dimmed, just to survive in a world that fears the unseen? Because the truth is, this world doesn't need more normal, it needs more real. It needs your sensitivity. Your inner vision. Your awakened heart. It needs the version of you that has been quietly waiting beneath the surface of survival. So listen to the dreams that won't leave you. Pay attention to the inner nudges that make no sense but feel profoundly right. Notice the way your body reacts when something isn't in alignment, and trust it as sacred intelligence. The voice of your soul may not speak in words, but it speaks clearly nonetheless. And now, you're finally in a space to hear it, not just with your ears, but with every fiber of your being. The senses within you are no longer dormant. They are active, alert, and attuned to the frequency of divine timing. And the gifts you once buried are rising, not just to be acknowledged, but to be used. This is your moment of spiritual reclamation, and everything in the universe is conspiring to support your return to your original essence. But awakening is not complete until it moves from the inner world into the outer one. You may have received messages, felt the shifts, remembered the sacred parts of yourself, but now the question becomes, what will you do with what you know? Because revelation without action becomes stagnation. And your soul, after all this remembering, all this awakening, is not meant to remain in theory. It is meant to become embodied truth. What you felt stirring within you in the quiet hours, in the dreams, in the stillness of solitude, those visions, those convictions, those deep soul recognitions, were never meant to stay hidden. They were meant to reshape your life. This is the moment where spiritual clarity must become physical movement. You start having conversations you've avoided. You begin making decisions not out of fear or habit, but from alignment. You create new boundaries, not to isolate, but to honor your energy. You say no to what drains you, yes to what feeds you, not because someone gave you permission, but because your soul finally took the lead. You may find your relationships shifting as your vibration shifts. You may be drawn to different spaces, different people, different callings. And as uncomfortable as that might feel, there's also a quiet sense of peace, because now, at last, your life begins to reflect your heart. The inner and the outer begin to speak the same language. You are no longer betraying your truth to maintain an image. You are no longer shrinking to fit into a space your spirit has outgrown. And that, in itself, is a kind of liberation. And as you take even the smallest steps in the direction of your soul's alignment, something else happens. The universe responds. The energy around you starts echoing back confirmation. You see repeating numbers, 1111, 222, 777, at the exact moment you're thinking a powerful thought. You hear the same word, the same phrase, the same message in 3 unrelated places within a single day. You have a conversation that feels guided, then read something that finishes the sentence you were about to speak. You think of someone you haven't seen in years, and they reach out the next day. You open a book to a random page, and the words pierce straight through your current experience. These are not coincidences. They are energetic synchronicities, and they're growing louder. Not because the universe has changed, but because you have. Because your frequency is higher now. Your awareness is sharper. You're tuned in. The veil between the seen and unseen has thinned, and you're no longer dismissing the divine signs as imagination. You recognize them for what they are, confirmation that you are on the path. There is a certain point in the spiritual journey where you don't need constant reassurance, but the signs still come, not to convince you, but to affirm you. They show up in the language your soul understands, symbols, dreams, numbers, sensations, moments of déjà vu that feel like echoes from another timeline. And the more you respond to them with trust, the more they appear. The more you honor their presence, the more your life becomes a dialogue, not just with people, but with the divine intelligence guiding all things. You realize that the universe has always been speaking to you. It's just that now, you're finally quiet enough to hear it, awake enough to see it, and brave enough to follow it. But as your soul begins to rise into alignment, as you start walking in truth, clarity, and energetic sensitivity, you may begin to notice something that catches you off guard. Certain relationships, certain routines, even certain parts of your identity begin to quietly fall away. People who once felt close may now feel distant. Conversations that once brought you comfort may now feel heavy, unfulfilling, or out of sync. At first, it might feel like loss. You may even ask yourself, am I doing something wrong? Why does this path of light feel so lonely? But the truth is, separation is not always loss, it is often preparation. Not everyone is meant to walk with you through every phase of your becoming. Some connections were designed for who you were, not who you're becoming. And when your frequency shifts, your life shifts with it. The things that no longer serve you begin to dissolve, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. You are not being punished. You are being made ready. This solitude you're walking through right now is sacred. It is an inner sanctification, a space in which your heart is being reset, your discernment sharpened, your spiritual sight cleared. You are being set apart, not to be isolated, but to be refined. Because what's ahead requires deeper connections, truer conversations, and relationships that meet you at the level of your soul, not just your history. You are no longer interested in surface. You are longing for substance. You crave eye contact that sees the spirit. Words that carry weight. Presence that honors presence. And if that means walking alone for a season, then that season is holy. And just as the ache of letting go begins to settle into your chest, just as the weight of transition begins to feel heavy, a shift in the atmosphere arrives. You may not even notice it at first. It's subtle, like the smell of spring before the first flowers bloom. But it's here. Because April has come, and with it, a completely new frequency. You may wake up one morning and feel different. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. The heaviness of March, the spiritual fatigue, the emotional fog, the repeating loops of inner confrontation, it begins to lift, slowly but surely. March was a month of excavation. A season of soul work. You may have felt exhausted for no reason, frustrated without explanation, or surrounded by shadows even when your heart was doing everything to reach the light. That wasn't failure. That was a deep clearing. A necessary undoing. An energetic stripping away of all the weight you could no longer carry into this next phase. And now, as April unfolds, you are stepping into clarity. Not the kind of clarity that solves every mystery, but the kind that feels like breath. Like peace. Like a soft knowing that everything is beginning to make sense, even if you can't yet explain how. The sky feels lighter. Your body feels steadier. The chaos begins to slow. And in its place, something new begins to bloom. It may start small. A moment of stillness that actually feels nourishing. A conversation that brings joy instead of draining you. An old idea returning, but this time with momentum. You may notice that your spirit is less reactive, more discerning. That your heart is not just open, but rooted. This is not a dramatic awakening, but a steady unfolding. A subtle but powerful new beginning. You are not just leaving March behind, you are stepping into something sacred. April is a gateway, and you are standing in the doorway. Behind you, all that you have survived, shed, surrendered. Ahead of you, all that you are now ready to receive, not because you've forced it, but because you've aligned with it. As you begin to step through this inner threshold, something even more mysterious unfolds, the sense that the universe is not just watching, it's actively speaking. And not in thunderclaps or visions from the sky, but in the most delicate of ways. In the patterns you keep seeing. The dreams that won't let go of you. The thoughts that arrive out of nowhere but land with divine precision. The feelings in your heart that say, pay attention to this, even when your mind tries to brush them aside. You may see the same numbers over and over again, on clocks, receipts, license plates. You may hear the same sentence from 3 different people in the same week. You may feel a nudge in your chest to call someone, go somewhere, or shift something in your life, and when you do, the alignment is too precise to be mere chance. That's because it isn't. Nothing is coincidence anymore. This is divine dialogue. A sacred exchange between you and the unseen realms. The universe is speaking in the language of energy, symbolism, intuition, and you, whether you realize it or not, are learning to understand it fluently. The veil has thinned. The bridge is open. You are no longer wandering blindly. You are being guided. And now, here you are. Standing at the edge of something holy. Because April 9th, 2025 is not just a calendar date. It is a cosmic invitation, a moment of spiritual convergence where your inner work meets outer alignment. Everything you felt stirring over the past weeks, all the disruption, the reflection, the dreams, the signs, they've all been leading here. You are being asked not to just grow, but to remember. To remember the part of you that has always known this path. The sacred self that existed before fear, before compromise, before the world told you to forget. And now, as the energy builds, as the alignments fall perfectly into place, as your heart begins to whisper yes, you are being invited into realignment with divine flow. Not by striving. Not by force. But by surrendering to the guidance that has already been given. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to know the full plan. You only need to listen. To trust. To follow the thread of intuition that has never left you. Use your discernment. Use your sensitivity. These are not weaknesses, they are your spiritual tools, finely tuned to help you walk through doors that logic could never open. The universe is asking now, as gently and as clearly as it ever will you listen? Will you move? Because the doorway is open. The air has changed. The time is now. And everything within you already knows it. If these words stir something deep in your spirit, if something unexplainable but true is resonating inside you, comment 777 below. Not for trend, but as a silent seal of agreement. A quiet yes between you and the divine. And if you know someone who needs this message, share it. Let it be a seed in their awakening, just as this moment may be one in yours. This isn't just a new season. It's a return. A reactivation. A realignment with the sacred self you were always meant to become.